Chapter 1. Time. 200 years before the doom. Pav. Kealen, Elias Vance. Darkness. Absolute, crushing darkness. Then, a searing flash of white, like staring into the heart of a supernova, but far more painful. My last conscious thought was the rhythmic hum of the quantum field generator in my lab, the subtle vibrations of a groundbreaking experiment nearing its peak. I was Dr. Elias Vance, theoretical physicist, a man whose life revolved around equations, algorithms, and the cold, elegant logic of the universe. My existence was defined by data, by verifiable facts. And then, there was nothing. Suddenly, a cacophony of alien sounds assaulted me. The rustle of unseen leaves, the chirping of insects unlike any I'd ever heard, the distant roar of something impossibly large. My body was different. It felt tiny, incoordinated, and helpless. A primal, suffocating urge to cry built in my chest, and a strange, reedy wail escaped my lips. This was not my lab. This was not Earth. This was, impossibly, a jungle. And I was a baby. The first few years were a blur of overwhelming sensations and frantic, internal data processing. My mind, thankfully, remained sharp, even if my motor skills were non-existent. I was a fully aware, highly intelligent adult trapped in the fragile, demanding body of an infant. Every new sight, sound, and touch was catalogued, analyzed. I observed the creatures that moved through the towering trees, the vibrant, alien flora, the damp, rich smell of the earth after a tropical downpour. And I observed the beings who cared for me. They were elves, though not like anything out of Tolkien or classic fantasy. These were the Silvanor, the forest kin. Taller than humans, with skin the color of pale ivory, and eyes that held the deep green or sapphire blue of the Sothorian jungle itself. Their ears were subtly pointed, their movements graceful, almost liquid. They communicated in a way that was both spoken language, a fluid series of clicks, whistles, and deep, resonant hums, and something more. An empathic connection, a shared feeling that bypassed words entirely. It was unnerving, yet efficient. My scientific mind labeled it a form of direct neural communication, likely based on complex bioelectrical signals. I learned it, slowly, painfully, feeling like a supercomputer running on dial-up. I quickly understood I was different from them. They called me Ael'athar, the deep-born. They treated me with a reverence that made my skin prickle, a quiet awe reserved for something ancient and rare. I was the last of my kind, they seemed to believe. The last of a lineage they revered. This meant a unique physical appearance. My skin had an almost luminous quality, my eyes a startling, vibrant amethyst, and, most terrifyingly, new powers. The first time it happened, I was perhaps 4 years old, a small, curious child reaching for a wilting flower. I merely wished it would live, and felt a strange tug, a current flow from my small hand. The flower perked up, its petals unfurling, its color deepening. Panic flared. This was impossible. This was magic. My rational mind, the very core of who Elias Vance was, rejected it. Yet, it happened again. A loose stone, an annoyance in my path, shifted with a thought. A vine I struggled to climb thickened and offered a perfect handhold. I began to experiment in secret, away from the watchful, reverent eyes of the Silvanor. I found I could command plants to grow at impossible speeds, to twist into complex shapes, to form living barriers or bridges. I could move earth, raising walls, carving tunnels, shaping the very landscape with a mere thought. It was like having a direct interface with the planet's geological and biological systems. I mentally categorized it as advanced biomanipulation and geokinetic interface, trying desperately to fit it into a scientific framework, even as it defied every law of physics from my home dimension. My body also possessed an extraordinary ability, rapid regeneration. A deep cut from a thorny vine would stitch itself together in minutes, leaving barely a scar. A bruise vanished within the hour. This was a gift, perhaps from the random omnipotent being who had dropped me here, ensuring the success of whatever cosmic experiment I was. By the time I was a teenager, around 17 years old, my mastery over these abilities was absolute. I could sculpt a mountain or grow a fortress of living wood with a thought. I could sense the deep networks of roots, the flow of underground rivers. And there was a growing awareness, a primal hum in my blood, to the creatures of Sothoryos. The animal bonding was instinctive. I could feel the presence of the massive, shaggy-haired stonefist apes that roamed the deeper jungles, their immense power resonating with my own. I knew, with an unsettling certainty, that I could bond with them, command them, ride them. My mind, still Elias Vance, was already working on a grand plan. From my earthly knowledge, I knew of the doom of Valyria, a cataclysm that would strike in about 200 years. A massive, dragon-riding empire would be wiped from the map. It was a terrifying thought, but also an opportunity. A vacuum. And here, in Sothoryos, a wild, untamed continent, was the perfect place to build something new, something better. A civilization that would learn from the mistakes of the past, guided by science, history, and my unique powers. An empire. My chance to truly begin shaping this future came, unexpectedly, one sweltering Sothorian afternoon. I was exploring, as I often did, pushing the boundaries of my powers in a remote section of the jungle, miles from the Verdantkin's main settlement. I was shaping a practice fortress, raising walls of stone, weaving layers of dense, thorned vines into impenetrable barriers. The focus required was immense, but the results were exhilarating. Suddenly, a sound cut through the jungle's usual symphony of chirps and roars. It was metallic, sharp, and utterly out of place. The clang of steel, the frantic shouts of men, and a high-pitched, guttural shriek that chilled me to the bone. Not animal. Something worse. Something I instinctively knew was Valyrian. I moved, faster than any human, through the dense undergrowth, using my plant control to clear paths instantly, my earth sense telling me of the vibrations of desperate flight and heavy pursuit. I burst into a small clearing to a scene of chaos. A group of figures, clearly not native to Sothoryos, fought desperately against monstrous creatures. They wore strange, shimmering armor, and wielded long, gleaming swords that hummed with an odd, faint energy. Valyrians. They had to be. One of them, a woman, tall and regal even in her frantic struggle, with striking silver hair and eyes of deep violet, was fighting off a truly monstrous beast. It was a cockatrice, a winged horror with iridescent scales and a venomous bite, larger and more aggressive than any illustration I'd seen. It lunged, its beak snapping at her. Dracarys. She screamed, a word I recognized from the books. But no dragon appeared. She was outmatched, her guards falling. My historian's mind flashed. Valyrians. This was it, my chance. Not just to save someone, but to gain access. To learn. To influence. This wasn't some random encounter. This was a pivotal moment. I didn't think. I acted. With a silent command, the very ground beneath the cockatrice erupted. Two massive, perfectly smooth pillars of rock shot upward, slamming into the beast from both sides, crushing its wings against its body. The creature shrieked, a sound of agony and rage, as I continued to squeeze, the stone grinding against its bone. Simultaneously, thick, prehensile vines, stronger than steel cables, burst from the ground and wrapped around its struggling form, binding it tightly. The cockatrice thrashed, but my control was absolute. It was held fast, helpless, eyes rolling in terror. The Valyrians, frozen mid-fight, stared at me. Their faces, usually arrogant and composed, were wide with shock. They looked at the bound monster, then at me, a pale, lithe Ael'athar, seemingly no older than 17, standing calmly in the jungle, his eyes glowing with inner focus. The silver-haired woman, her chest heaving from the fight, slowly lowered her sword. Her violet eyes, though wary, held a spark of something new. What manner of creature are you? She breathed, her Valyrian high tongue surprisingly clear. I looked at the cockatrice, then back at her. My first interaction with the architects of the Doom, the future empire I intended to learn from, and surpass. My voice, in their tongue, was still a little raw, unpracticed. I am Kaelen, I stated, deliberately omitting my Ael'athar status. And this jungle, it listens to me. A simple explanation for them. For me, it was the first step on a very long road. I had just saved one of the top Valyrian houses. And the doors of the freehold, I hoped, were about to open for Elias Vance. 2 comments 0 vote. Chapter 2. Chapter 2. Time. 199 years before the Doom. Pav. Kaelen Elias Vance. The air in the clearing crackled with tension. The monstrous cockatrice, its wings pinned by my stone pillars and its body bound by impossibly strong vines, thrashed weakly, its beady eyes wide with terror. The Valyrians, sleek and arrogant in their shimmering armor, watched me with a mix of awe and suspicion. They were powerful, proud, and in this moment, utterly helpless before something they couldn't understand. Good. Fear was a useful tool. The silver-haired woman, whose violet eyes now studied me with intense scrutiny, slowly pushed herself upright. She was regal, even covered in jungle grime. Her Valyrian high tongue, though a bit shaky, was clear. What manner of creature are you?" she repeated, her gaze darting between me and the impossibly restrained beast. My earthly mind, Elias Vance's mind, raced. Valyrians, slavers, conquerors. Telling them about the Silvanor or my unique lineage was suicide. They would exploit it, enslave them, try to dissect me. No, secrecy was paramount. My advantage lay in being unknown, unpredictable. But I needed a way in. A deal. "I am Kaelen," I said, my voice as calm as I could make it, consciously keeping my Ael'athar empathic resonance subtle. "And this jungle, it listens to me." Simple, vague, true enough. She looked at the bound cockatrice again, then back to my eyes. "That is clear. You saved me, and my guard." She gestured to the two male Valyrians, who were now slowly picking themselves up, their faces as pale as hers. "I am Valyria, and we owe you a life debt." Valyria, one of the great Dragonlord houses. Perfect. This was precisely the kind of access I needed. "A life debt can be a heavy thing, Valyria," I replied, choosing my words carefully. I needed to sound powerful, mysterious, but also reasonable. "And I do not offer my assistance lightly." I walked towards the cockatrice, my footsteps silent on the damp earth. The creature whimpered as I approached, its terror palpable. I placed a hand on one of the stone pillars I'd raised, feeling its raw power. "I require something in return for my unique services." Valyria's chin lifted, a flicker of her natural Valyrian pride showing through. "Name your price. If it is within the power of House Valyria, it is yours." "I ask for two things," I stated, my eyes fixed on hers. "First, that you and your companions never speak of what you saw here today. My abilities, my connection to this land. You keep this secret, for all your days. To reveal it would be unwise." I let a hint of cold steel enter my voice. The jungle has its own way of silencing those who betray its trust. It was a bluff, but a good one. My earth sense told me her two guards were still too shaken to be a threat. Valyria's eyes narrowed, but she didn't argue. Her gaze went to the impossibly perfect stone pillars, then to the unyielding vines. She was intelligent enough to see the unspoken threat. "And the second?" she asked, her voice tight. "Take me to Valyria," I said, the words feeling strange on my tongue, bridging my past and present lives. "I am a curious being, and I have heard tales of your freehold. It is said to be a place of unmatched knowledge, of great wonders. I wish to learn." Her eyebrows shot up. "Valyria, you wish to come to the freehold? As, what?" There was a hint of suspicion in her tone now. "You are no thrall." "As a guest," I clarified, my gaze unwavering. "A scholar. One who seeks understanding. I offer my unique talents, should House Valyria ever find itself in such dire straits again. A quiet ally, whose existence remains unknown to others." I gestured subtly to the cockatrice. "My value is obvious. My discretion, invaluable." Valyria considered me for a long moment, her calculating Valyrian mind working. The secrecy, the power, the potential for a powerful, hidden asset. It was a tempting offer, especially for a proud house that might occasionally find itself in need of a quiet advantage. And my very presence here, in the depths of Sothoryos, hinted at secrets she might not want others to uncover. Finally, she gave a slow, deliberate nod. "Very well, Kaelen, your terms are accepted. You will travel with us. You will be a guest of House Valyria. And what happened here, stays here. We swear it, by the blood of our dragons." She motioned to her guards. "Loose this beast. We have no quarrel with it now." I released the cockatrice, the stone pillars sinking back into the earth, the vines retracting as if they were never there. The creature, terrified, fled into the jungle, its shrieks fading. Valyria watched it go, then looked at me, a strange light in her violet eyes. "You said you were curious, Kaelen," she said. "Valyria is indeed a place of knowledge. But it is also a place of fire and blood." "I am familiar with both," I replied, a small, wry smile touching my lips. I had read the books. I knew a lot more about fire and blood than she could possibly imagine. "Lead the way, Valyria. My journey begins." We traveled for weeks through the dense, unforgiving jungle. The Valyrians, despite their armor and swords, struggled. My assistance, though subtle, became indispensable. I cleared paths, found hidden springs, even occasionally conjured temporary shelters of woven branches that protected us from the harshest downpours. Valyria watched me closely, her initial suspicion slowly replaced by a growing fascination. We spoke, in halting Valyrian from my side, in more practiced tones from hers. I asked questions about Valyrian history, their dragons, their trade routes, feigning a scholar's innocent curiosity. She, in turn, asked about Sothoryos, its dangers, its secrets. I answered vaguely, always steering her away from any mention of the Silvanor. When we finally reached the coast, a majestic Valyrian galley, sleek and powerful, waited offshore. It dwarfed their smaller landing boats. Valyria's personal vessel. Relief flooded her face. As we boarded, the ship's captain, a stern-faced Valyrian male, looked at me with open skepticism. "Who is this, Archon Valyria?" he demanded, his eyes raking over my pale, simple jungle attire. "A curious scholar from the depths of Sothoryos," Valyria stated, her voice firm. "A guest of House Valyri's. Treat him with respect." Her gaze flickered to me, a silent reminder of our pact. The journey across the smoking sea was long, giving me more time to observe Valyrian ways. Their ship was a marvel of engineering, but their arrogance was even more striking. They spoke of dragons and magic as if it were their birthright, of other peoples as lesser beings. I saw the seeds of their future doom, cultivated in every proud word and dismissive gesture. And then, one morning, the horizon shimmered. Not with heat, but with impossible grandeur. Far in the distance, columns of smoke rose from the 14 flames, the chain of volcanoes that powered their empire. And then, the city. Valyria, spire upon spire of impossibly tall towers, built of fused rock, reaching for the heavens. Dragon riders swooping through the clouds like living banners. It was magnificent, terrifying, and, to the Elias Vance part of me, a living historical document. 1 comments 0 vote. Chapter 3. Chapter 3. Time, 199,179 years before the doom. Pav. Kaelen Elias Vance. The Valyria's manse was less a house and more a small city carved from fused black stone, towering over the surrounding structures in Valyria. Dragons, massive and terrible, roosted on the highest spires, their scales glinting like jewels in the harsh Valyrian sun. The air itself hummed with raw power, a stark contrast to the quiet, natural energy of Sothoryos. This was a place built on ambition and arcane might, utterly alien to my Ael'athar senses, yet fascinating to my earthly mind. Valyria led me through echoing halls, past slaves in rich livery and Valyrians in silks and fine metals, all of whom gave me curious, often disdainful, glances. I kept my face blank, observing everything. The rich tapestries, the intricate carvings, the sheer, undeniable wealth. This was the heart of an empire, arrogant and powerful. And in less than 2 centuries, it would be dust. The thought gave me a cold, pragmatic resolve. We entered a vast chamber where a man sat at a table laden with scrolls and maps. He was older than Valyria, with the same striking silver hair, though his was pulled back in a severe braid. His violet eyes, however, held a sharp, dangerous intelligence that Valyria's youthful gaze only hinted at. This was Archon Valyri's, the head of the house. He looked up as we entered, his expression unreadable. "Father," Valyria said, her voice respectful but firm, "this is Kaelen, the one I spoke of." Valyria's eyes fixed on me, piercing and assessing. He said nothing for a long moment, simply studying me, as if trying to decipher a complex equation. I returned his gaze steadily, projecting calm and a subtle hint of the unusual, without giving anything away. I was a scholar, a curious being from the wild. Nothing more. Finally, he spoke, his voice deep and resonant. "My daughter tells me you pulled her from the jaws of death, single-handedly subduing a fully grown cockatrice. An impossible feat, for one of your appearance." He waved a dismissive hand, indicating my simple attire and lack of Valyrian finery. "She speaks of stone rising and vines binding. She speaks of secrets." "Your daughter speaks truthfully, Archon Valyria," I replied, my voice steady. "The jungle of Sothoryos holds many secrets. And I have learned to speak to it." I kept it simple. Vagueness was my shield. Valyria leaned forward, his elbows on the table. "Valyria also tells me you demand a price for your silence. And passage to Valyria. Is this true?" "It is," I confirmed. "My interest lies in knowledge." Your freehold is famed for its libraries, its arts, its understanding of the world. I seek to learn. He chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. A scholar, in the depths of Sothoryos. And with such, singular talents. You are a curious being, Kaelen. Most men would demand gold, or power, or a dragon. Gold is fleeting. Power, in the wrong hands, is poison, I stated, drawing on my historical knowledge of countless fallen empires. And dragons are not for those who seek to understand, but to dominate. I seek understanding. I seek to observe, to learn the ways of the freehold, its smithing arts, its naval architecture, its very philosophy. I knew what I needed. The practical skills that could build a new civilization, and the insights into how the old one worked, and how it failed. Valyria regarded me for a long moment, a calculating glint in his eyes. He was arrogant, yes, but also intensely pragmatic. A powerful, mysterious asset, bound by a secret and a desire for knowledge that seemed harmless enough. Very well, Kaelen, he said, a slow smile spreading across his face. You are bold. I like boldness. You may stay as long as you wish. You will have access to our libraries, to our artisans, to our shipwrights. You will learn what you desire. He paused, his gaze sharp. In return, your silence remains absolute. And should House Valyria ever again face a crisis where your unique talents might be useful, you will offer them. Quietly. Agreed, Archon Valyria, I said, a slight bow of my head. The deal was struck. My grand education had begun. The scholar warrior 199,179 years before the doom. For the next 20 years, Valyria became my classroom. I lived within the sprawling Valyria's compound, a peculiar guest who was neither thrall nor master, yet held a strange, unspoken influence. Valyria, initially wary, slowly became something akin to a friend. She was fascinated by my perspective, by my quiet observations of their society. I, in turn, learned much from her. She spoke of Valyrian politics, the rivalries of the Dragonlord houses, the intricate dance of power that held the freehold together. My days were a blur of intense study. I spent hours in the Valyria's libraries, vast repositories of knowledge carved into living rock, devouring texts on history, engineering, and the arcane arts. I sought out the best smiths, watching their every move, learning the secrets of Valyrian steel. It wasn't magic, I realized, but a highly advanced form of metallurgy, involving precise temperatures, unique folding techniques, and perhaps a subtle infusion of dragon breath or blood that altered the molecular structure of the metal. My rapid regeneration meant I could work in the scorching heat of the forges longer than any human, never tiring, never burning beyond repair. I learned to hammer, to fold, to temper, absorbing every technique. I also found the best sword masters. Valyrians were fierce warriors, and their fighting styles were elegant and deadly. My Ael'athar body was already incredibly agile, and my rapid regeneration allowed me to push past pain, learning complex forms and maneuvers. I trained relentlessly, my muscle memory adapting with astonishing speed. I didn't just learn to wield a sword, I learned to master it, combining their techniques with my own understanding of physics and leverage. Years turned into decades. I continued to grow, but my Ael'athar form reached maturity around 20. After that, I simply stopped aging. My skin remained smooth, my hair as silver white as the day I was reborn. Valyria and Valyria, who were growing older, observed this with increasing awe and unease. One evening, after a particularly grueling training session, Valyria, now a mature woman with lines of experience around her eyes, watched me closely. You do not age, Kaelen, she stated, not as a question but a simple fact. You are the same as when you arrived. My people are long-lived, Valyria, I replied simply, the truth veiled within a half-truth. We walk a slower path through time. Valyria, now visibly older, his face deeply lined, later called me to his study. Your secret is safe, Kaelen, he said, his voice raspy. We have honored our pact. But your longevity, it draws attention. Soon, the others will notice. Even our closest allies. His eyes held a hint of desperation. He had benefited from my quiet insights, my ability to sense truths others missed, my subtle ways of gathering information without overtly using my powers. It was my cue. My time in Valyria was nearing its end. I had absorbed all I could hear. I had glimpsed the arrogance, the internal decay, the simmering tensions that would surely contribute to the doom. I had learned how to make the finest steel, how to fight, how to understand the intricacies of a complex, doomed empire. My studies here are nearing their completion, Archon, I said, my voice gentle. I feel the pull of new horizons. I wish to continue my journey of knowledge, to explore the wider world. To seek new adventures. A convenient excuse. I knew where I was going next. To Essos, to learn how to build the ships that would carry my empire's trade and armies. Vialor nodded slowly. He understood. My presence, while beneficial, was also a riddle he couldn't solve, a secret that was becoming harder to keep. Then go, Kaelen of Sothoryos, he said, a strange mix of regret and relief in his voice. May your adventures bring you the knowledge you seek. Remember your debt to House Valyries. I gave him a deep, respectful bow. Always, Archon. I had come here a curious outsider. I left a master of steel and sword, with decades of observation and a lifetime of ambition still ahead. My journey to build the Sothorian Empire now led east. 0 comments 0 vote. Chapter 4. Chapter 4. Time. 179,149 years before the doom. Pav. Kaelen Elias Vance. Leaving Valyria was a strange feeling. For 20 years, that sprawling, arrogant city had been my university, my forge, my training ground. I carried its secrets within me, the intricate dance of its politics, the raw power of its magic that still defied my earthly understanding, and the practical knowledge of its steel and swords. But I also carried the heavy certainty of its coming destruction. It was a dying empire, and I had learned all it could teach me for my own goals. My journey led me across the Jade Sea, on a merchant vessel whose captain was too awed by my subtle Valyrian finery, gifts from House Valyries, to ask too many questions. My destination, Pentos. It was one of the free cities, a bustling hub of trade and intrigue, far from Valyria's direct shadow, and a prime location to find what I needed next, knowledge of shipbuilding. Pentos was a stark contrast to Valyria's grand, imposing silence. It was loud, crowded, and alive with the smell of spices, fish, and sweat. Merchants shouted, sellswords swaggered, and the air buzzed with a different kind of energy, the energy of commerce and competition. I navigated the labyrinthine streets, my heightened senses taking in every detail, my mind absorbing the new culture, the new rhythms of life. I spent days observing the docks, watching ships of every size and design being built, repaired, and loaded. My goal wasn't just to learn how to build boats, but why they were built that way. The physics of buoyancy, hydrodynamics, the stresses on different woods and rigging in varied seas, these were the new equations I needed to solve. I watched the shipwrights, their calloused hands moving with practiced ease, their eyes judging angles and curves. They were artisans, engineers, and, to me, invaluable sources of information. My target became a particular shipyard, one known for building sturdy, long-haul merchant vessels. Its owner was a gruff, stocky man named Tobos, his face weathered by sun and sea, his hands like gnarled oak. He oversaw his apprentices with a sharp tongue and an even sharper eye for detail. His ships were known for their reliability. He was precisely what I needed. One afternoon, I approached him as he inspected a ship's keel. Master Tobos, I said, my voice polite, my Valyrian-accented common tongue a little stiff from lack of practice, but clear. He grunted, not looking up. What do you want, boy? This ain't a place for idle gawkers. I am Kaelen, I replied, standing my ground. And I wish to learn. I have observed your work for days. Your vessels are strong, your methods precise. I believe I could be a useful apprentice. Tobos finally looked at me, his eyes, dark and shrewd, taking me in. My pale skin, my unusual amethyst eyes, the fine, though simple, clothes. An apprentice. You look like you've never lifted anything heavier than a feather. And you speak like you've come from beyond the world, Pale One. He settled on, Pale One, a common enough descriptor for someone of my coloring from the sunnier south. I am quick to learn, I countered, keeping my tone even. My strength is deceptive, and my mind is eager. I seek knowledge, Master Tobos, in all its forms. I will work tirelessly. I will ask no pay, only teaching. For as long as you deem me useful. He scoffed. No pay. What's your game, boy? You rich Valyrian fancy boy come here for amusement. He paused, then his eyes narrowed. You ain't one of them thralls, are ya? 'Cause if you are, you're in the wrong city. I am no thrall, I stated firmly, meeting his gaze. I am simply a traveler with a deep curiosity about how things are made. From the ground, to the sky, to the sea. I tried to imply a broad interest, without giving away my actual powers. I believe your craft is as vital as any in the world. Tobos studied me for a long, quiet moment. He'd likely never met anyone quite like me. No pay was a powerful incentive, and my calm confidence must have piqued his interest. Or perhaps he saw a challenge. Finally, he spat on the ground. All right, stranger, you want to learn. You start with scrubbing decks and hauling timber. If you can last a week without whimpering, then maybe I'll show you how to tie a knot. But don't expect special treatment. This ain't no parlor game. Thank you, Master Tobos, I said, a genuine sense of triumph welling within me. This was it, the next phase. The shipwright's apprentice 179,149 years before the doom. For the next 30 years, Pentos became my new school. I started at the bottom, just as Tobos had promised. I scrubbed, I hauled, I cut timber, my rapid regeneration making the grueling work tolerable, even easy. My body grew strong, lean, and accustomed to the relentless demands of the shipyard. Tobos, for all his gruffness, was a master. He taught me about wood, its grain, its strength, how it flexed and resisted. He taught me about sails, rigging, and the intricate dance of forces that kept a ship afloat and moving. My mind devoured every lesson. I didn't just learn what to do. I learned why. I spent my nights poring over old shipbuilding diagrams, sketching out my own designs, applying the principles of fluid dynamics I remembered from Earth. I was a sponge, absorbing everything. Tobos, at first dismissive, slowly grew to respect my tireless dedication and my seemingly uncanny knack for understanding complex problems. He never saw me age, of course. He just saw Kaelen, the diligent, quiet apprentice who never tired, never complained, and eventually outpaced all his other workers. I met others in Pentos too. Fellow apprentices, cynical dockworkers, shrewd merchants. I learned their ways, their hopes, and their fears. I saw the power of trade, the importance of reliable transport, the arteries that kept a civilization alive. This wasn't just about building ships, it was about understanding the backbone of an economy, crucial knowledge for any aspiring empire builder. As the decades passed, Tobos, now an old man, saw me surpass even his own skills. He was well past his prime, his hands gnarled with age, his mind still sharp but slower. He had seen me remain young, while he himself withered. He never asked how, or why. Perhaps he was too old, too tired, or too resigned to the strange wonders of the world. Perhaps he just valued my skill. One evening, as the twin suns of Pentos dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues, Tobos found me on the nearly finished deck of a new merchant galley, inspecting the mast. "Kaelen," he rasped, his voice weak. "You're the best I've ever taught. Better than me, truth be told. You could take over this yard. Make it truly great." I looked at him, at the years etched on his face, the life he had lived. "My thanks, Master Tobos," I said, a genuine warmth in my voice. I had come to respect him greatly. But my journey is not yet done. There are still many horizons to explore, many currents to understand. He nodded slowly, a knowing look in his rheumy eyes. I thought as much. Some men are built for one place. Others, for the world. You're the latter, Kaelen. Go, build your fortunes. Just remember the old shipwright who taught you to tie a good knot. I will, I promised. And thank you, Master Tobos. For everything. I left Pentos a master shipwright, a quiet observer of trade, and a man with 30 more years of experience in this strange new world. My next destination lay far to the east, a place of ancient wisdom and even more ancient secrets, Yeeti. I needed to see its wonders, absorb its culture, and perhaps uncover more pieces for my grand puzzle. My empire wouldn't just be strong, it would be wise, adaptable, and far-seeing. 0 comments 0 vote. Chapter 5. Chapter 5. Time. 149,119 years before the doom. Pav. Kaelen Elias Vance. Leaving Pentos was less of a wrench than leaving Valyria. I had learned what I needed from the shipyards, understood the commerce and flow of Essos' western cities. My goal now lay far to the east, in the fabled lands of Yeeti. I needed to understand different forms of governance, ancient wisdom, and the long-lost secrets that might still exist in the oldest parts of this world. My empire wouldn't just be strong and well-built, it would be wise, adaptable, and informed by millennia of human and non-human experience. But before I truly set sail, there was one final interaction. A strategic connection I wished to maintain for the future, based on a unique kind of obligation. One crisp Pentoshi morning, as the harbor bustled with the usual chaos of loading and unloading, I saw a familiar banner unfurl from the mast of a newly arrived Valyrian galley, the three-headed dragon of House Valyries. My heart gave a strange lurch. 20 years in Valyria, 30 years in Pentos. 50 years had passed since I last saw her. I found Valyria disembarking. She was not the fierce, vibrant warrior I remembered. Her silver hair was now almost entirely white, pulled back from a face deeply etched with lines of age and worry. Her movements were slower, her shoulders slightly stooped, yet her violet eyes still held that sharp, intelligent spark. Beside her stood a young man, tall and arrogant, with the classic Valyria's features, clearly her son and heir. I approached slowly, feeling the decades of unogging weigh on me like an invisible cloak. Valyria, I said, my voice soft, but carrying enough resonance to cut through the din of the docks. She turned, her eyes narrowed, trying to place me. Then, slowly, recognition dawned, and her eyes widened, disbelief warring with something akin to wonder. Kaelen, she breathed, her voice a fragile whisper. By the 14 flames, is that truly you? I offered her a slight bow, a gesture of respect I'd learned in Valyria. It is I. You have aged gracefully, Archon Viella. A dry, brittle laugh escaped her lips. Aged, Kaelen, I am an old woman. My youth is a distant memory. You are exactly as I remember you. Not a day older. She looked me up and down, then shook her head slowly. The tales of your people's longevity are clearly no mere tales. You are truly from beyond our understanding. Her son, who had been watching this exchange with open confusion and disdain, finally spoke up. Mother, who is this strange fellow? He addresses you with an insolence. Silence, Ael'athar, Viella cut him off, her voice suddenly sharp, a flash of her old self returning. She looked back at me, her gaze both knowing and weary. Life has continued to teach me, I replied, a subtle sadness touching my voice. The secrets of the waves, the ways of men in distant lands. I have seen much, and learned more. But I have also carried a debt to House Valyria. Viella's brow furrowed, a flicker of confusion. Debt, Kaelen, you saved my life. And your chosen payment was knowledge. That debt was settled, long ago. A life debt, yes, that was settled, I confirmed, my gaze meeting hers firmly. But there is another kind of debt. For 50 years, House Valyria has kept my secret, knowing what I am, knowing what I can do. For 50 years, you honored our pact and provided me with invaluable knowledge, the very currency I chose as my payment for your life. I looked pointedly at Ael'athar, who merely scowled, still trying to make sense of the interaction. That discretion, that knowledge, is a profound gift. It creates an obligation on my part. A long-term one. Viella studied me, a flicker of understanding passing through her eyes. She grasped my intent. A reciprocal offering, an investment in a future resource. It wasn't about loyalty, but about a pragmatic, enduring arrangement. My travels continue eastward, I explained. But should House Valyria ever find itself in dire need again, know that the assistants of Kaelen are his descendants. I gestured vaguely, hinting at an unbroken lineage without giving away my personal immortality, will be there. A quiet resource. My terms from Sothoryos still stand. My assistance, in exchange for absolute secrecy about my nature. Viella's eyes softened, a new depth of appreciation in them. I understand, Kaelen, she said, her voice filled with a quiet gravitas. The Valyria will remember this. My son will remember this. His sons will remember this. She reached out, her aged hand surprisingly firm as she grasped my arm. May your path be clear, Kaelen. You are a wonder. Ael'athar, still confused, shifted uncomfortably. Mother, what are you talking about? Who is he? Viella ignored him, her eyes still on mine. Go, Kaelen, your adventures await. I nodded, offering her another, deeper bow. Farewell, Viella Valyria. May your house prosper. Then, I turned and walked away, leaving the aging Archon and her baffled son on the docks of Pentos. My journey to the east, to Yeeti, would be long and arduous, but I carried with me a sense of accomplishment. I had secured a future anchor, a potential ally in the powerful, doomed world of Valyria, by leveraging the long-standing value of their discretion and knowledge provided to me. The next 30 years would prepare me even further for the grand design. 0 comments 0 vote. Chapter 6. Chapter 6. Time. 149,119 years before the doom. Pav. Valyria and Ael'athar. The docks of Pentos always hummed with noise, but this day, for Valyria, it was a distant drone. Her attention was fixed on the strange, pale man who had simply appeared, unchanged, after 50 years. Kaelen. The name itself tasted like a secret on her tongue. She watched him walk away, his form as lithe and youthful as the day he had saved her from the cockatrice in Sothoryos. Her son, Ael'athar, was still sputtering beside her, utterly baffled. Mother, who was that peculiar man? Ael'athar demanded, his voice sharp with confusion. And what nonsense was he speaking of debts and descendants? Valyria sighed, her aged hand going to Ael'ar's arm. He is a story, my son. One you will carry, and one your own children must carry. He is the debt house Valyria owes. Ael'athar scoffed. A debt? We gave him passage to Valyria, access to our libraries, our smiths. We taught him. That debt was paid in full. Valyria shook her head, her gaze distant, remembering the primal force Kaelen had commanded in the jungle. No, Ael'athar, that was payment for my life. His price was knowledge, and we gave it. But he also demanded absolute silence about his gifts. For 50 years, we have kept that secret, even as he defied time itself. That discretion, that knowledge we imparted to a being who does not age, creates a new kind of obligation. A unique bond. She looked at her son, her eyes serious. He offers us a hidden resource, Ael'athar. A powerful one, if we ever need it. And in return, we continue our silence, and we pass his message down through the generations. Ael'athar still looked skeptical, but the gravity in his mother's voice clearly unsettled him. He means to imply he will live for centuries. He does live for centuries, it seems, Valyria murmured, a tremor in her voice. Remember him, Ael'athar. Remember his words. The Valyrians will owe him, and he will remember. She turned, her attention now fully on the business of the docks, but her mind still replayed the encounter. A wonder, indeed, and a secret more valuable than any dragon. Pav. Kealen, Elias Vance. The familiar cacophony of the Pentos docks faded behind me. Valyria and her baffled son, Ael'athar, were now just figures shrinking in the distance. The arrangement was made. The debt was secured. House Valyria, for all their arrogance, were pragmatic enough to value a hidden, long-term asset. My cover was established. Now, the true adventure of learning could continue. My journey to Yeeti was a tapestry woven from years of travel. I rode with dusty trade caravans across vast plains, their merchants wary but respectful of my quiet demeanor and my unusual, nagging face. I slept under starry skies in high mountain passes, the air thin and sharp, feeling the earth hum beneath me, a stark contrast to the humid press of Sothoryos. I learned to bargain in a dozen tongues, to read the subtle cues of different cultures, to identify local flora and fauna. My body, ever resilient due to my rapid regeneration, barely noticed the hardships of the road. I didn't rush. Time was, literally, on my side. I was soaking up the world, building my internal database for the empire I would one day forge. I noted trade routes, military tactics, and the quiet ways people lived their lives. Finally, after years, the landscape shifted. The air grew thinner, cleaner, hinting at vast, ancient civilizations. And then, the first glimpse, the towering, golden-roofed pagodas of Yeeti, piercing the sky like gilded needles. This was a land steeped in antiquity, far older than Valyria, a place of emperors, philosophers, and legendary artisans. My goal in Yeeti was specific, to deepen my understanding of crafting. Valyria taught me steel. Now, I sought the masters of artisan smithing, especially those working with unique metals and techniques that mirrored the legendary blades of Earth's East. I had read about katanas, about their incredible sharpness and resilience, forged through precise layering and folding. I had a theory. If Valyrian steel was a form of advanced metallurgy, perhaps a similar level of artistry existed here, though expressed differently. I immersed myself in the bustling cities of Yeeti, presenting myself as a humble scholar seeking lost arts. My strange appearance often garnered curiosity, but here, in a land with tales of mythical beasts and ancient sorcerers, I was simply another eccentric from a distant land. They called me, the Pale Wanderer, or, the Quiet Seeker. I found what I was looking for in a secluded, mountain village, nestled deep in the Jade Mountains. It was a place where smithing was less a trade and more a spiritual practice. Here, I met Master Hiroshi, a wizened old man with hands gnarled from decades of shaping metal. His forge was a place of quiet reverence, filled with the rhythmic clang of hammer on steel, the hiss of quenching water, and the subtle scent of charcoal. He wasn't working with dragons or arcane rituals, he was working with pure, disciplined skill. "You have strange eyes, young one," Master Hiroshi said, his voice raspy as he watched me observe him shaping a blade. He rarely took apprentices, but something about my unwavering gaze, my endless patience, must have intrigued him. "And you watch with the hunger of a man who has lived many lives." "I merely seek to understand true artistry, Master Hiroshi," I replied, bowing deeply. "Your control over the metal, the way it flows under your hammer, it is unlike anything I have seen. I wish to learn the art of the folding blade." Hiroshi studied me, his eyes, dark and sharp, seeing more than most. "This art requires patience, years, a lifetime." "I have patience," I promised, a small, knowing smile touching my lips. "And time." And so, for the next 30 years, I became Master Hiroshi's apprentice. I learned the intricate dance of heating and hammering, of folding the steel hundreds of times, drawing out impurities, creating layers of unimaginable strength and flexibility. I learned the precise temperatures, the exact angles, the subtle song of the metal as it cooled. It was a meditation, a science, and an art all in one. My regeneration allowed me to work in the scorching heat of the forge for endless hours, to never tire, to perfect every strike. I learned to make katanas, blades of unmatched balance and terrifying sharpness, perfectly suited for the quick, precise movements I had learned in Valyria. I also learned from the broader Yeetish culture. Their emphasis on discipline, on honor, on the long view of history. Their meticulous record-keeping, their complex hierarchies. I absorbed philosophies on sustainable agriculture and resource management, how their vast empire fed itself. These weren't just theoretical lessons, they were practical blueprints for the future. By the time I left Yeeti, Master Hiroshi was long gone, having passed peacefully in his sleep, convinced I was some blessed student who had found the secret to eternal youth. I was approaching my 90th year, though I still looked 17. I was now not only a master of Valyrian smithing and sword arts but also an unparalleled crafter of blades, capable of forging weapons of exceptional quality. I understood the nuances of materials like no other. My long journey was drawing to a close. I had gathered knowledge from across the known world, from the fire of Valyria to the disciplined wisdom of the East. It was time to return to Sothoryos, to the deep, green heart of my origins. 2 comments 0 vote. Chapter 7. Chapter 7. Time, 119,100 years before the doom. Pav. Kealen, Elias Vance. My decades in Yeeti had given me a deep appreciation for the world's ancient wisdom, but my focus remained on my grand design, the Sothorian Empire. It was time to return, to put all my accumulated knowledge to use. But first, a final, necessary stop in Valyria. I needed to ensure the long-term strategic connection with House Valyries remained firm, and to solidify my cover story for my unchanging appearance. The voyage back across the Jade Sea and then the Smoking Sea felt like a return to a familiar, if still terrifying, beast. When the towering spires of Valyria finally rose from the horizon, they seemed grander, yet also more fragile, viewed through the lens of my gained knowledge and the impending doom. I made my way to the Valyries manse, its familiar fused stone walls now appearing a little more worn, a little more weathered by the centuries. It had been nearly 70 years since I first set foot here, a young, curious scholar from an unknown land. I was met by a guard I didn't recognize, but my old name still carried weight. "I am Kaelen," I stated, my voice calm. "I seek Archon Ael'athar Valyries." The guard, a young man with a skeptical look, led me through the opulent halls. The air still hummed with arcane power, but I sensed a subtle shift, a faint tremor of decay beneath the surface of the freehold's might. I found Ael'athar Valyries in his solar, a room filled with scrolls and intricate dragon carvings. He was no longer the arrogant young man I'd met in Pentos. He was now an old man, his once proud features deeply lined, his silver hair thin and almost translucent. His hands trembled slightly as he poured himself a cup of wine. He looked up as I entered, and his eyes, though clouded by age, widened in immediate, disbelieving recognition. "Kaelen," he rasped, his voice thin, almost like a dry leaf rustling. He stared at my perpetually youthful face, his jaw slack. "By the gods, you are truly untouched by time." "Archon Ael'athar," I said, offering a respectful, measured bow. "It has been many decades." He chuckled, a frail, humorless sound. "Decades. Try lifetimes, Kaelen. I am on the threshold of passing into shadow. My mother, Valyria, she passed some 20 years ago." My expression softened. Valyria had been my first real connection in this world, a shrewd mind who understood the subtle power play. "I am sorry to hear that, Archon. Valyria Valyries was a remarkable woman." Ael'athar sighed, a deep, shuddering breath. "She spoke of you often, in her last years. She spoke of your meeting in Pentos, of your offer. She called you the promise. She insisted on its importance to the very end." He looked at me, a flicker of the old Valyri's shrewdness in his eyes. "She said you were a debt owed to us, an enduring resource. She made me swear to remember you. To ensure my children remembered you." "She was wise," I replied simply. "And I have returned to renew that understanding. To ensure the link remains unbroken." I knew my lack of aging needed a plausible cover for future interactions. Just then, the door opened and 2 younger Valyrians entered. A woman, regal and sharp, with the characteristic silver hair and violet eyes, and a man beside her, equally striking. They were perhaps in their late 20s or early 30s. "Father, are you well?" the woman asked, her voice concerned. She looked at me with curiosity. Ael'athar waved a trembling hand. "Yes, Rhaena, come, this is Kaelen, the one your grandmother, Valyria, spoke of often. The promise to our house. And this," he gestured to his children, "is my daughter, Rhaena Valyries, and my son, Daenys Valyries, my heir." I bowed to them. "A pleasure to meet you both. Your grandmother was a woman of foresight." Rhaena's gaze was sharp. "My grandmother spoke of a curious scholar from Sothoryos who saved her life, and to whom we owe an unusual consideration. She said you did not age." Her eyes raked over my youthful appearance, a spark of wonder and suspicion in them. "My people are long-lived, Lady Rhaena," I explained, adhering to my established cover. "And I have chosen to walk a path of constant exploration and learning. My travels have taken me far and wide, from the depths of Sothoryos to the wisdom of Yeeti. Now, I embark on a new journey, and it felt right to touch base with those who have offered me such invaluable aid and discretion over the centuries." Daenys, the son, stepped forward, his expression more guarded. "And this assistance our grandmother spoke of, what does it entail, stranger?" I looked directly at him, projecting confidence and a hint of something ancient. "It means, Lord Daenys, that the unique knowledge I possess, and the quiet assistance I can offer, remains available to House Valyries should your need be great. As long as our mutual understanding of secrecy remains absolute. It is a long-standing arrangement, forged with your grandmother and honored by your father." Ael'athar coughed, a wet, rattling sound. "It is so, my children. This arrangement, it is ancient now. And it is sacred. Kaelen's discretion is absolute. And so is ours." He looked at me, a glimmer of relief in his old eyes. "Are you leaving us, Kaelen?" "My adventures call me back to the ancient lands of Sothoryos, Archon," I said, maintaining the facade of a perpetual explorer. "I am always seeking new understandings, new challenges. But consider me a distant, silent friend of House Valyries. My descendants will always honor the compact." Rhaena and Daenys exchanged a look, clearly intrigued but wary. They saw the value in a hidden asset, even if they didn't fully comprehend the nature of my longevity. The seed was planted. The debt, the promise, the strategic alliance for my future was firmly established for another generation. I spent a few more days at the Valyries manse, observing the subtle shifts in Valyrian society, feeling the creeping arrogance grow stronger. I confirmed that the general knowledge of House Valyries' survival was attributed to sheer luck and their own prowess, with no hint of my intervention. My secret was safe, my education complete. I boarded a ship bound for the long journey back to the wild continent I now called home. 100 years before the doom, I was finally ready. I was Kaelen, the long-lived Ael'athar, master of earth, plants, and combat, with the knowledge of Valyrian steel and Essos trade, and the ancient wisdom of Yeeti. I had seen the world. Now, it was time to build my own. 0 comments 0 vote. Chapter 8. Chapter 8. Time. 100 years before the doom. Pav. Kealen Elias Vance. The air, even from the distant coastline, smelled different. Richer. Wild. Untamed. After a century of civilization, of Valyrian fire and Yeetish discipline, the pervasive scent of damp earth, dense foliage, and unseen beasts was a welcome embrace. This was Sothoryos. This was home. My true home. It took weeks of trekking through the outer jungles, navigating by instinct in the deep, silent hum of the earth beneath my feet, to find the hidden valley of the verdant kin. My senses were sharper than ever, my connection to the land a direct pipeline. I felt the pulse of the ancient trees, the flow of unseen rivers, the very life breathing within the jungle itself. The familiar, woven shelters of the Silvanor appeared through the foliage, blending seamlessly with the giant trees they were built around. My heart felt a strange mix of anticipation and trepidation. How would they react to me after so long? I had left them a youth, now I returned still physically 17, but with the wisdom and experience of a centenarian. I walked into the heart of the settlement, my footsteps silent. The Silvanor children, with their pale skin and jewel-toned eyes, paused their games and stared at me, wide-eyed. Adults stopped their work, their heads tilting, their empathic senses surely trying to decipher the stranger who carried the old scent of their tribe, yet was unknown. Then, a voice, filled with a disbelief that slowly transformed into a quiet, almost spiritual awe. Kaelen. It was Elder Lyra. She was truly ancient now, her posture bent, her hair like spun moonlight, her eyes, though still kind, misty with age. She sat by a fire, tending to some herbs, her hands gnarled with time. She had been a young elder when she found me by the river, and had watched me grow into the youth who left. Now, she was practically a living ancestor. I knelt before her, out of respect for her age and her kindness. Elder Lyra, I have returned. She reached out a trembling hand, her fingers tracing the lines of my face, searching for wrinkles that weren't there. Her eyes filled with tears. It is truly you, she whispered, her voice cracking. The deep-born. You have not changed. The spirits truly walk a different path with you. I told you I would return, I said gently, allowing a subtle wave of calm empathy to flow from me, reassuring her. My journey of learning is complete. I have seen the far lands, their wonders, and their follies. I looked around the familiar valley. It was beautiful, but small. Vulnerable. My vision of an empire, tempered by a century of observation, burned brighter than ever. The other Silvanor gathered, whispering, touching their elders for reassurance. They remembered the strange, gifted youth who had left so long ago, but seeing him back, untouched by time, was a profound shock. The tribe has missed your presence, Kaelen, Lyra said, her voice stronger now. The seasons have been harsh. The jungle seems to grow more hostile each year. We face new challenges. She looked at me, a desperate hope in her ancient eyes. Can you help us again, Kaelen? This was it, the perfect opening. My initial test, long delayed, was finally at hand. I had spent a century learning to build a kingdom. Now, I would start with a tribe. I can, Elder Lyra, I stated, my voice ringing with calm authority, the voice of a man who had seen worlds and measured empires. I have learned much. It is time for the verdant kin to grow. To unite. To build something that will endure beyond any season, beyond any challenge. My rapid regeneration, my mastery over plant and earth, my knowledge of Valyrian steel and shipbuilding, my insights into governance and economy from across Essos, all of it had led me back here. It was time for the doom of Valyria to fade into history, but here, in Sothoryos, a new power was about to rise from the jungle's heart. It was time to begin the building and uniting of Elder Lyra's tribe, the first step towards my empire. 1 comments 0 vote. Chapter 9. Chapter 9. Time. 170 years before the doom. Pav. Kealen Elias Vance. The news of my return, and my unchanging appearance, spread like wildfire through the verdant kin. The older Silvanor remembered me as the strange, gifted youth who'd vanished. The younger ones looked at me with open wonder, as if I were a spirit manifest. Elder Lyra, frail but resolute, called for a gathering of the elders' council. This was my chance, my true first step. The council gathered in the oldest part of the valley, under the shade of ancient, towering trees whose roots twisted like forgotten giants. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the quiet, empathic whispers of the Silvanor. The elders, their faces etched with the concerns of a struggling tribe, looked at me with a mixture of hope and skepticism. Kaelen, Lyra began, her voice soft but clear, you have returned from the world beyond our valley. You look as you did when you left, yet you speak with the wisdom of the ancients. What have you seen? What do you bring to the verdant kin? I stood before them, my presence calm, assured. Elders, I have seen the great civilizations of this world. I have seen their power, their knowledge, their triumphs, and their inevitable falls. I let my voice carry a subtle resonance, allowing them to feel the weight of my experiences. They build with stone and fire, they command armies and seas, and they grow vast and wealthy. But their strength is often their weakness. They rise, then they inevitably shatter, leaving only ruins. I paused, letting the silence hang heavy. The verdant kin, your way, is beautiful. You live in harmony with the jungle. But you are small, vulnerable. The jungle itself grows more hostile. The blight you faced years ago was but a whisper of the dangers that gather beyond your borders. Relying on ancient spirits alone will not save you when the true storms come. A tremor ran through the council. They knew the truth of my words. I bring you not just ancient ways, but new ones, I declared, my voice firm. I have learned to shape stone like the mountains, to build ships that can cross any sea, to forge steel that sings with power. I have learned how empires are governed, how their people are organized, how knowledge is preserved and passed down. And I have learned the discipline that makes even the wild beast a loyal companion. I projected images into their minds. Towering defenses of living stone and wood, grand halls, bustling markets, ships sailing mighty rivers, legions of Silvanor warriors, united and strong. My vision for the verdant kin is not merely survival, but dominance. We will not abandon our respect for the land, but we will master it. We will unite the scattered tribes of Sothoryos under a single banner, a new kind of civilization, built on the foundations of our connection to the earth, tempered by the wisdom of the freehold and the discipline of the East. We will build a city that rises from the jungle, a beacon of our strength. A palace that will become a myth, a symbol of our enduring power. And we will forge weapons that will protect us from any foe. A deep murmur spread through the elders. Many looked fearful, others skeptical. This was a radical departure from their peaceful, hidden ways. Such change is vast, Kaelen, one elder ventured, his voice shaky. The spirits may not approve. The spirits listen to power, I countered, my eyes burning with conviction. And I wield that power. I am the last Ael'athar. It is my destiny to lead our people to greatness. But I cannot do it alone. I need you. I need your wisdom. I need your belief. I looked at each of them, projecting my unwavering resolve. And I need strong hands and sharp minds to help me build this future. The very next day, I sought out Lyra's son. He was named Phylor, a strong, earnest Silvanor with a kind heart and a deep respect for his mother. He was perhaps 40 years old, a mature warrior and hunter. He looked at me with quiet reverence, having heard his mother's tales and now seeing my unchanged appearance with his own eyes. Phylor, I said, meeting him by the river. Your mother speaks highly of you. Your dedication to the tribe, your strength in the hunt. I see a leader in you. He bowed his head humbly. I merely serve the verdant kin, Kaelen. As my mother has. As you did, long ago. My service will be different now, I explained, gesturing to the surrounding jungle. I aim to transform this valley. To teach our people new ways to shape the earth, to build, to defend. I will need loyal people by my side. Those who understand my vision and are willing to dedicate their lives to its creation. Phylor listened intently as I laid out the initial plans for the city, for the unified tribes. He was a keen listener, asking practical questions about resources and organization, showing a clear aptitude for leadership. He became my first true lieutenant. Building the foundation and forging the dukes. For the next 30 years, the verdant kin underwent a profound transformation under my direct guidance. It was a period of relentless work, teaching, and profound change. My first task was to begin uniting the tribes. I sent Phylor and other trusted Silvanor on scouting missions to nearby, smaller tribes, carrying my message. Not a demand for subjugation, but an offer of protection, prosperity, and a shared future under the leadership of the last Ael'athar. My personal demonstrations of power, Shifting rivers, raising immense walls of stone and living wood with a thought, instantly healing injuries, convinced many. They saw not a conqueror, but a savior, a true force of nature on their side. Slowly, hesitantly at first, then with growing conviction, the scattered jungle tribes began to send their people to my growing settlement. My next focus was building the new city. It rose from the heart of the verdant Kin's Valley, a marvel unlike anything Sothoryos had ever seen. I didn't just build, I taught. Using my earth control, I shaped the foundations, but I made the Silvanor learn the methods of quarrying, stone cutting, and basic masonry. With my plant control, I wove massive, durable structures of living wood, teaching them how to graft and guide the growth. Rivers were diverted for clean water and irrigation. Fields were cleared, using techniques I learned from Essos to maximize yield. Housing, temples, and communal spaces began to take shape. It was slow work, demanding immense effort from both me and my people, but they saw the vision, and they built with fierce pride. This city would one day be the core of my empire, and the great palace that would sit at its heart, a symbol of our power, was already being envisioned in my mind's eye. Crucially, I began to train apprentices in the arts I had mastered. I picked the most promising young Silvanor, those with keen minds and disciplined spirits. For smithing, I found Arian, the swift scout who once favored jungle birds. He had a natural aptitude for precise movements and a burning curiosity about how things worked. I taught him the secrets of Valyrian steel, the folding techniques of Yeeti. We set up hidden forges deep in the jungle, powered by underground vents I could access with my earth control. He learned to temper metal, to shape it into blades of unmatched quality. He would forge the weapons of my future armies. For sword arts, I chose Valerius, the powerful young hunter. He already possessed incredible strength and courage, but I taught him discipline, precision, and the intricate Valyrian fighting forms, combined with the quick, deadly movements I'd learned from the katana masters. He became a master of combat, dedicated to protecting our people. For language and administration, I chose Silvani, the quiet, observant woman who loved the ancient trees. She possessed a meticulous mind and a serene patience. I taught her to read and write the common tongue of Essos, to understand the intricacies of governance, trade, and record-keeping. Together, we began to write down the language of the Silvanor, creating a written form for their clicks and hums, giving them a new way to preserve their history and communicate. As these chosen few mastered their skills, I began to introduce the concept of house names, or last names. The Silvanor had always gone by single names, or descriptive titles. But an empire needed structure, lineage, a way to pass on reputation and responsibility. From this day forward, I declared before my chosen apprentices, you will be more than just individuals. You will be the foundation of our future. You will be the dukes of this new age. To Arian, the smith and scout, I gave the name Arian Kaelenor, symbolizing his mastery of celestial fires in the forge and his future as a gleaming vanguard. He would become my Duke of Forges and Vanguard, responsible for our arms and our swift movements. To Valerius, the powerful hunter and warrior, I gave the name Valerius Ithilien, for his deep connection to the earth's defenses and his noble, unyielding strength in combat. He would be my Duke of Arms and Defenders, leading our forces. To Silvani, the scholar in quiet strength, I gave the name Silvani Lumiel, for her bright wisdom, her illuminating insights, and her graceful administration. She would be my Duke of Lore and Prosperity, managing our resources and knowledge. And to Fieler, Elder Lyra's son, my first true lieutenant, I gave the name Fieler Amburn, symbolizing his fundamental connection to the world, his foundational role, and his unwavering leadership in our growth. He would be my Duke of Earth and Expansion, overseeing the growth of our cities and our people. These were my legendary 4 dukes. My trusted friends. My closest advisors. For 30 years, I taught them, mentored them, and shaped them. We built, we organized, we forged. The seed of my empire was planted, its roots growing deep in the Sothorian soil. The time for conquest would come, but first, we had to build an unshakable foundation. With the first city taking shape and the 4 dukes established, Arian Kaelenor, Valerius Ithilien, Silvani Lumiel, Fieler Amburn, 1 comments 0 vote. Chapter 10. Chapter 10. Time, 70-60 years before the doom. Pav, Kaelen Silvanor. 30 years had transformed the verdant Kin's hidden valley. Where once stood scattered huts, now rose the beginnings of a formidable city. Stone walls, still incomplete but visibly growing, embraced structures of living wood and carefully planned irrigation canals. Our population swelled, not just with the verdant kin's own children, but with families from the first few tribes who had peacefully assimilated, drawn by the promise of security and a future I could visibly build with my own hands. My dukes had proven indispensable. Fieler Ambren masterfully oversaw construction and the influx of new peoples, his calm demeanor reassuring nervous newcomers. Silvani Lumiel meticulously organized resources and began establishing trade routes with more distant, neutral tribes. Arian Kaelinar's forges rang day and night, producing tools in the first crude, but resilient, iron weapons. And Valerius Ithilien drilled our growing warrior class, turning hunters into disciplined protectors. But true unity for my people, the Ael'athar, required more. We needed to bring the larger, more powerful, and often hostile tribes into our fold. This couldn't be done merely by demonstration. It required negotiation, and if necessary, a show of undeniable force. I called for a grand council of tribes. Messengers, chosen for their swiftness and diplomatic skills, were dispatched to the major powers of our region, the fierce Stoneskin tribe, renowned for their hardened warriors and deep earth dwellings, the elusive river whisperers, masters of the waterways and ambush, and the proud sky dancers, who claimed dominion over the open savannas on the jungle's fringes. The invitation was simple: meet and discuss the future of Sothoryos, or face it unprepared. Weeks later, the delegates arrived. Not in our burgeoning city, but at a neutral clearing several days' journey from our walls, a traditional meeting ground where ancient trees formed a natural amphitheater. I insisted on this neutral ground to signal respect, not immediate dominance. The air thrummed with tension. Chiefs and shamans, warriors and elders, from a dozen different tribes filled the clearing. They were a motley mix. The stone skins, broad and grim, their faces painted with ochre and clay. The river whisperers, lean and quick, their movements fluid as water. The sky dancers, tall and adorned with feathers, their eyes sharp with pride. Suspicion hung heavy, thick as the jungle mist. I stood at the center of my own delegation, flanked by my dukes. My unchanging face, my aura of ancient power, drew every eye. Fieler Ambren radiated calm authority beside me. Valerius Ithilien stood with quiet, watchful intensity, his hand never far from the hilt of his newly forged blade. Arian Kaelinor observed the other tribes' armaments with a knowing eye, while Silvani Lumiel emanated a serene wisdom that seemed to cut through the hostility. "Welcome," I began, my voice clear and carrying, amplified just subtly by my connection to the earth beneath us. "I am Kaelen Silvanor. I am of the Ael'athar, as many of you are. I have returned from long travels beyond these jungles, and I bring a warning and a promise." I spoke of the encroaching world, the slave ships from the coast, the diseases they sometimes carried, the slow but inexorable expansion of other civilizations. I spoke of the strength in unity, illustrating with images projected into their minds, thriving cities, vast fields, armies moving as one. I contrasted it with the current reality of isolated tribes, vulnerable to outside threats and internal squabbles. "The time for isolated existence is ending," I declared. "We can either be swept away like leaves in a flood, or we can rise together, a mighty river that carves its own path. I offer you a choice. Join us. Share in our strength, our knowledge, our prosperity. Build a future that endures. Or fight us. Hold to your old ways, and face the storms alone, for they are coming." A tense silence followed. Then, the elder of the stone skins, a man named Crag, whose face was a roadmap of old scars, grunted. "Your words are smooth, pale wanderer. But your ways are new. We live by strength. Why should we not simply take what you build?" "Because you will fail," I stated, my voice unwavering. "I do not seek to rule by mere strength. I seek to unite. But know this, my strength is absolute. My people are growing. Our city rises. Our weapons are unlike any you possess." To illustrate, I raised a hand. The ground before them rippled, and a section of the earth slowly, silently, rose into a perfectly smooth, unbreakable wall of fused stone, as tall as 3 men. Then, just as easily, I dissolved it back into the ground. A murmur of awe and fear rippled through the gathering. Arian Kaelinor stepped forward, drawing a glinting, black Valyrian steel-like blade from his sheath, a weapon he had forged. The weapon hummed with subtle power. The chief of the river whisperers, a woman named Lyra, a common name among the Silvanor, though unrelated to the elder Lyra, spoke next, her voice like flowing water. We value our freedom, Kaelen Silvanor. Our waters are our refuge. What peace can you offer that is worth our ancient ways? Peace through strength, Lady Lyra, I answered. And prosperity through cooperation. Your mastery of the rivers will flow through our entire domain. Your wisdom of the waterways will guide our trade. You will be honored, and you will share in the wealth of a united people. Your tribe will not be subsumed, it will be integral. The chief of the Sky Dancers, a proud young warrior named Zephyr, scowled. We are free as the winds. We bow to no one. Your city ways are for caged beasts. Freedom is meaningless without security, I countered, meeting his defiant gaze. And the winds, though free, can be shattered by a coming storm. My aim is not to cage you, but to build a storm shelter for all of us. You will lead our swift scouts, our airborne defenses. Your freedom will expand to encompass an entire continent, secured by walls of stone and blades of steel, and the power of a united people. The discussions continued for days. Threats, boasts, demands, and cautious inquiries filled the air. My dukes played their roles perfectly, each demonstrating their particular strengths. Fialar with his deep understanding of organization, Silvani with her calm logic and knowledge of other cultures, Arian with the undeniable quality of his metalwork, and Valerius with his disciplined, powerful presence. Ultimately, the choice was laid bare: join or resist. The stone skins, after a long, intense internal debate, chose to join, seeing the pragmatism in my power. The river whisperers, swayed by Silvani's quiet diplomacy and the promise of expanded trade, cautiously agreed to an alliance. The Sky Dancers, ever proud, chose to hold their ground, warning they would fight if we encroached further. They would be my first true military challenge. As the sun set on the final day of the council, I knew the path ahead was long. We had gained allies, but also made a clear enemy. The stage was set for the expansion of my new empire. The unification of the Ael'athar had truly begun. 0 comments 0 vote. Chapter 11. Chapter 11. Time. 65 years before the doom. Pav. Kaelen Silvanor. The Grand Council had achieved its immediate goal. Two major tribes, the Stone Skins and the River Whisperers, had agreed to join our burgeoning alliance. But the proud Sky Dancers, led by the defiant Zephyr, had refused. Their pride in their aerial freedom was absolute, their disdain for settled ways palpable. A full-scale conflict, however, was not my aim. My goal was unification, not decimation. I would not spill the blood of my own people, not if there was another way. We would fight the old ways. I dispatched a solitary, swift messenger back to Zephyr's territory, carrying a new proposal. Not a declaration of war, but a challenge. A single combat, between myself and Zephyr, or a champion of his choosing. The terms were simple and ancient: the victor's will would determine the fate of the losing tribe. If I won, the Sky Dancers would join our growing nation. If I lost, our claim on their lands would cease, and we would leave them to their winds. Days later, the messenger returned. Zephyr, as I had predicted, had accepted. His pride would not allow him to refuse such a direct challenge, especially from a leader who wielded such strange, quiet power. The agreed-upon ground was a wide, flat mesa, high above the jungle canopy, a place where the Sky Dancers felt at home, where their speed and agility in the open air could be maximized. I arrived with my dukes and a contingent of our best warriors, chosen from the Verdantkin and the newly integrated Stone Skins and River Whisperers. The Sky Dancers were already there, hundreds of them, adorned with feathers and war paint, their bodies lean and quick. Zephyr stood at the center of his people, his gaze sharp and defiant, a long, recurved spear clutched in his hand. Kaelen Silvanor, Zephyr's voice rang out, you speak of new ways, yet you seek to prove your worth in the old. Let us see if your power truly makes you a master of the wind. My power allows me to shape the world, Zephyr, I replied, stepping forward. I wore no armor, only simple, dark leather. In my hand, I held a Valyrian steel-like longsword, forged by Arian Kaelenor, its black metal humming faintly. And it allows me to recognize the worth in every life. This contest avoids needless death. Your people are too valuable to lose. The other tribal leaders, including the newly allied chiefs, had come to witness this pivotal moment. The tension was thick, almost a living thing. This was not just a duel, it was a test of my philosophy, my strength, and the very future of Sothoryos. The fight began. Zephyr was a whirlwind. He moved with incredible agility, leaping and feinting, his spear a blur of motion. He was a true master of the open ground, using the wind and space to his advantage, just as the sky dancers always did. His attacks were swift, aimed at quick, incapacitating strikes. I met his speed with my own. My Valyrian combat training, honed by Yeetish precision, allowed me to anticipate his movements. Each of Zephyr's thrusts was met with a parry, a deflection, a sidestep that left him just short of his mark. My body, regenerating as quickly as he could hope to wound it, seemed to shrug off the grazes that would fell any mortal man. I moved with a fluidity that almost matched his, a blend of ancient martial arts and my inherent connection to the solid earth beneath my feet, which subtly anchored my movements, making me impossibly stable. Zephyr's frustration grew. He moved faster, more recklessly, launching himself into aerial spins, trying to strike from unexpected angles. He was dancing through the air, trying to find a gap in my defense. But my blade was an extension of my will, a shining arc that seemed to always be where he was not, or where he was about to be. Finally, seeing an opening after one of his wild leaps, I moved. Not with overwhelming force, but with absolute precision. My blade flashed, not to kill, but to disable. It sliced cleanly through the haft of his spear, severing the wooden shaft just below his grip. The blade clattered uselessly to the ground. Then, with a swift, almost imperceptible movement, I twisted, bringing the flat of my sword against his chest, sending him sprawling to the ground, winded but unharmed. I placed the tip of my blade at his throat, not breaking the skin. Silence fell over the mesa. The sky dancers watched, stunned. Zephyr lay there, breathless, staring up at my unwavering face. He struggled, then subsided, defeated. "Your courage is undeniable, Zephyr," I said, my voice calm, "and your skill is formidable. But the winds, no matter how free, must sometimes find a stable ground to rest. Join us, not as conquered, but as partners. Your swiftness, your mastery of movement, will be vital to our united people. You will lead our scouts, our swift messengers, and be the eyes of our burgeoning nation." Slowly, carefully, Zephyr nodded. The pride was still there, but now mixed with a grudging respect. He had fought hard, by the old ways, and I had bested him without spilling the blood of his people. That, he understood. "We join," he rasped, pushing himself up. "The sky dancers will be your eyes, Kaelen Silvanor." A murmur of assent, then a roar of approval, erupted from the assembled tribes, a mix of relief and renewed awe. The unification had just gained its swiftest, fiercest component. The old ways had served my purpose, sparing lives and gaining valuable allies. The path to empire was being carved, one tribe, one challenge, at a time. 0 comments 0 vote. Chapter 12. Chapter 12. Time. 55 years before the doom. Pav. Kaelen Silvanor. 15 years had passed since the duel with Zephyr. 15 years of relentless building, teaching, and intricate integration. The gamble had paid off. The stone skins, with their unparalleled knowledge of mining and tunneling, had become the bedrock of our resource extraction. The river whisperers, with their intimate understanding of waterways, were now master navigators and engineers of irrigation, bringing life to newly cleared lands. And the sky dancers, true to Zephyr's word, had become our eyes and swift messengers, their prowess in reconnaissance unmatched. The disparate voices of the Ael'athar were beginning to sing in harmony. Our capital, now officially named Eltharion, rose from the heart of the jungle, a testament to unity. Its fused stone and living wood walls reached higher, its markets bustled, and its central palace, still under construction, was already a marvel of ancient design and emergent magical architecture. But a true empire couldn't be governed from a single point. It needed roots, branches, and a clear structure. I called my dukes, Arian Kaelenor, Valerius Ithilien, Silvani Lumiel, Fieler Ambern, to a council within the burgeoning main hall of the palace. The air crackled with their focused anticipation. They had seen my vision for a united people, now it was time to show them the framework of its enduring power. "Our people grow," I began, my voice carrying the weight of centuries, "and our territory expands. To govern effectively, to manage our resources, and to protect every life, we must create a clear, tiered structure of responsibility. Our domain will be divided into 4 grand duchies, each overseen by one of you, my trusted dukes." I unrolled a meticulously crafted map, etched onto tanned jungle hide, depicting the expanding territories beyond Eltharion. Ael'athar, Duke of the Verdant Heart, your duchy will encompass the fertile central plains and the ever-expanding frontiers of our core lands. Your capital city will be Ambrosia, built strategically at the nexus of the largest river system, a hub for all future exploration and expansion. Under you, Ael'athar, will serve 4 counts, each governing a large county. Below them, 8 viscounts will command smaller viscounties, managing localized resources and militias. And beneath them, 16 barons will oversee baronies, the foundational communities and outposts. Ael'athar nodded, his eyes already tracing lines on the map, thinking of logistics and growth. I continued, detailing the other allocations. The Grand Duchies and their leadership. 1. Duchy of Kaelenor, Arian Kaelenor, Duke of Forges and Vanguard. Territory. The Iron Peaks, rugged mountains and rich mineral veins to the north and east of Eltharion, home to the integrated stone skins. This region would be the forge of our nation, providing the raw materials for our superior weaponry and infrastructure. Capital City. Firesong Citadel, a formidable mountain fortress carved directly into a living volcano, its forges stoked by the Earth's own fire. Counts. Examples. Count Alara Eridor, oversees the richest iron and copper mines in the county of Eridor's Ascent. Count Kaelen Silvanor, commands the strategic passes and the skilled smithing communities in the county of Solara's Forge. Hierarchy. Under these counts, viscounts like Lithal and Ael'athar would manage smaller mining settlements and defensive outposts, with barons such as Cinderwin and Glimmerin overseeing individual resource sites and specialized artisan communities. Arian's command structure prioritized resource extraction and defense. 2. Duchy of Ithilien, Valerius Ithilien, Duke of Arms and Defenders. Territory. The Whispering Woods, vast, ancient, and densely forested regions to the west, bordering hostile wild territories and holding our first lines of defense. This duchy would be the shield of the empire, training the bulk of our disciplined forces. Capital City. Deepwood Bastion, a heavily fortified city built into the heart of an ancient forest, its defenses interwoven with massive, living trees. Counts. Examples. Count Rhys Silvanus, governs the primary training grounds and the strategic western passes in the county of Silvanus's Vale. Count Lyriel Greenwood, oversees the deep forest garrisons and patrols protecting the sensitive interior in the county of Greenwood Heart. Hierarchy. Viscounts like Thalen and Glarion would command specific garrisons and patrol zones within critical forest regions, while barons such as Lorwyn and Alderin would oversee smaller guard towers and frontier communities, ensuring constant vigilance and rapid response. 3. Duchy of Lumiel, Silvani Lumiel, Duke of Lore and Prosperity. Territory. The sunken valleys, rich river plains and fertile lands to the south, prime for agriculture and burgeoning trade routes with new and neutral tribes. This duchy would be the breadbasket and knowledge center of the empire. Capital City. Riverlight Hearth, a sprawling, beautiful city built along the confluence of 3 major rivers, its libraries and markets serving as centers of learning and commerce. Counts. Examples. Count Phelan Nimriel, manages the primary riverine trade and agricultural districts in the county of Nimriel's Flow. Count Lorien Starlight, oversees the main academies and healing centers, serving the county of Starlight Gardens. Hierarchy. Viscounts such as Meliana and Alara Streamlight would manage specific river ports, large farms, and smaller trade hubs, while barons like Glimmering and Sunwind would oversee individual villages and specialized craft communities, nurturing prosperity and learning throughout the region. 4. Duchy of Ambern, Ael'athar Ambern, Duke of Earth and Expansion. Territory. The evergreen expanses, the vast central plains and the pushing frontiers beyond our settled lands, critical for future growth, new tribal integrations, and resource discovery. This duchy would be the engine of our territorial growth. Capital City. Ambrosia, a rapidly growing city built at a strategic river intersection, designed for future expansion and diplomatic hubs for new integrations. Counts. Examples. Count Alarin Theron, governs the newly cleared farmlands and nascent settlements on the eastern frontier in the county of Theron's Reach. Count Torvin Amariel, leads the pioneering groups and surveying expeditions into unexplored lands in the county of Amariel's Growth. Hierarchy. Viscounts like Rhys Eldenor and Kaelen Mural would oversee the establishment of new outposts and resource collection points, and barons such as Rutenor and Greenhaven would lead individual colonization efforts and small, developing communities, always pushing the boundaries of our dominion. The dukes listened intently, their minds already at work, calculating the implications. This wasn't merely a map, it was the blueprint for an entire civilization. This structure, I concluded, provides accountability, efficient governance, and a path for every Silvanor to contribute. It is the framework upon which our empire will rise and endure. Each of you, my dukes, will select and train your own counts, viscounts, and barons, teaching them our ways, instilling our discipline, and binding them to the loyalty of our unified people. The process of building this intricate network would span decades, but the foundation had been laid. My empire, born from a personal ambition, was taking tangible, living form across the vastness of Sothoryos. 1 comments 0 vote. Chapter 13, The Shield and the Sail. Chapter 13, The Shield and the Sail. Time, from 55 to 10 years before the doom. Pav, Kaelen Silvanor. The passing decades were a testament to meticulous planning and tireless execution. From 55 years before the doom to just 10 years remaining, the empire of the Silvanor transformed from a burgeoning idea into a formidable, self-sustaining power. My dukes, now seasoned leaders, oversaw their respective domains with exceptional competence, integrating their counties, viscounties, and baronies into a cohesive whole. This period, perhaps the most critical, was dedicated to two paramount endeavors: the forging of an unshakable army and the building of a dominant fleet. Forging the shield, the Ael'athar legions. Under the stern and unwavering leadership of Valerius Ithilien, Duke of Arms and Defenders, our military might grew exponentially. The old tribal skirmishes and loose warrior bands were replaced by highly disciplined, professional legions. Valerius, leveraging the Yeetish training I had imparted, instilled a rigorous system of drills, tactics, and battlefield maneuvers. Recruits, drawn from all integrated tribes, the Steneskins' brute strength, the River Whisperers' stealth, the Ski Dancers' unmatched agility, and the Verdantkin's inherent discipline, underwent years of intense training. They learned to fight not just as individuals, but as cohesive units, adapting their unique tribal strengths to standardized formations and combined arms tactics. Special emphasis was placed on jungle warfare, allowing them to navigate and fight within Sothoryos' treacherous environments with unparalleled ease. Aryan Kaelenor's forges at Firesong Citadel roared ceaselessly. His master smiths, under his direct supervision, produced a steady supply of superior weaponry and armor. Our legions were equipped with black Valyrian steel-like blades, lightweight yet incredibly strong scale armor made from treated jungle hides and magically reinforced metals, and durable shields. Each legionnaire was a walking testament to Ael'athar ingenuity and might. The legions were organized into cohorts and centuries, led by veteran captains and commanders chosen from the ranks of Valerius's counts, viscounts, and barons. These were warriors whose loyalty was absolute, honed by decades of service and shared purpose. By 10 years before the doom, our standing army numbered in the tens of thousands, with hundreds of thousands more trained reserves. They were a formidable force, capable of defending our vast borders and projecting power. Building the sail, the jungle fleets. While Valerius forged our shield on land, Silvani Lumiel, Duke of Lore and Prosperity, and Fieler Ambern, Duke of Earth and Expansion, spearheaded the creation of our naval power. Leveraging the shipbuilding knowledge I brought from Pentos and the natural resources of our abundant jungles, we designed a fleet uniquely suited for Sothoryos' vast river networks and challenging coastlines. Our ships were unlike any seen in Essos. Built primarily from the exceptionally strong and naturally resistant hardwoods of the Sothorian jungle, their hulls were further reinforced through Ael'athar plant shaping techniques, making them remarkably durable and surprisingly fast. They were sleek, designed for speed and maneuverability in both wide rivers and open seas. Some larger vessels even incorporated sections of living wood, allowing for minor self-repair or adaptive camouflage. The fleet served multiple crucial purposes. Riverine patrol. Smaller, swift vessels tirelessly patrolled the countless rivers that crisscrossed our territory, securing trade routes and ensuring rapid troop movement. Coastal defense. Larger, more robust ships defended our growing port cities along the coast, deterring pirate raids and curious foreign vessels. Exploration and trade. Expeditions were launched to chart the treacherous Sothorian coastline and establish contact and trade with distant, hitherto unknown tribes, expanding our reach and influence. Strategic transport. The fleet provided the logistical backbone for moving large numbers of troops and resources across our sprawling empire. Silvani meticulously managed the shipyards in Riverlight Hearth, overseeing design, construction, and the training of navigators and quartermasters. Fieler deployed these fleets along the frontiers from Ambrosia, using them to extend our influence deeper into unexplored territories and secure newly integrated riverine tribes. As the years dwindled, the scale of our achievement became undeniable. Ael'athar now stood as a true marvel, its palace reaching for the sky. Firesong Citadel pulsed with the heat of creation, Deepwood Bastion stood as an impenetrable green fortress, Riverlight Hearth flowed with knowledge and trade, and Ambrosia served as the vibrant gateway to ever-expanding horizons. My dukes had blossomed into true architects of empire, their mastery of their domains absolute. I, Kaelen Silvanor, spent these decades as the silent observer, the ultimate guide. My long life allowed me to anticipate problems decades in advance, to subtly course-correct, to provide the vital insights gleaned from a world far beyond this one. I trained key individuals, nurtured talent, and instilled the discipline necessary for an empire to endure. The constant, rapid regeneration meant any physical toll was instantly erased, leaving only the mental burden of endless responsibility. Now, only 10 years remained until the whispers of the doom of Valyria would become a roar. We had built our shield, and we had launched our sail. We were ready, but were we ready enough? The Empire is powerful and prepared. 0 comments 0 vote. Chapter 14, The Whispers of Doom. Chapter 14, The Whispers of Doom. Time, 10 years before the doom. Pav, Kaelen Silvanor. The roar of the Valyrian freehold was a distant hum in my mind, yet it was growing louder with each passing year. Only 10 years remained until the whispers of the doom would become a deafening cataclysm. My empire in Sothoryos was strong, its shield forged, its sails ready. Now, there was one final obligation I had to fulfill, a personal promise made to a young girl whose life I had saved nearly a century and a half ago, Valyria. I had given her house a secret advantage, and in return, they had given me the keys to knowledge and a hidden ally within the very heart of the Dragonlords. It was time to pay that ancient debt. Leaving the burgeoning might of my domain in the capable hands of my dukes, I prepared for my journey. This time, I traveled with a small, swift vessel from my new fleet, cutting through the eastern waters towards the smoking sea. My passage was swift and discreet, utilizing the newfound navigation skills of the river whisperers and the stealth of the sky dancers in my crew. Valyria, the site of the 14 flames, eternally burning atop the colossal volcanoes, was as inspiring and terrifying as it had been all those years ago. It was a monument to hubris, a testament to power, and soon, it would be a tomb. Navigating the sprawling capital, its obsidian towers reaching into the sky, I moved as a ghost from the past, my youthful appearance unchanging, my purpose singular. I sought out the current head of House Valyria, Lord Arian Valyria, a man whose features held a striking, if diluted, resemblance to Valyria. He received me in a private chamber, confusion and curiosity warring in his eyes as he beheld my unchanged face. We spoke of ancient debts, of favors owed, of a loyalty passed down through generations. Once the recognition finally settled in his mind, replaced by shock and a glimmer of understanding, I delivered my message. Lord Arian, I began, my voice steady, betraying none of the urgency that gnawed at my ancient soul. I have come to fulfill a promise made to your ancestress, Valyria. I bring you a warning that will decide the fate of your house. The doom is coming, not a distant threat, not a fanciful tale. It is inevitable. The fires beneath Valyria are stirring, and soon, they will consume all. His face paled, then hardened. Madness. The volcanoes are our strength, Pale One. Our power is unassailable. Your power is built upon a foundation that will crack, I countered, my gaze unwavering. The earth remembers its ancient pains. It will cast off its burden. You must leave, take your house, your kin, your treasures, and flee this place. Believe me or not, that choice is yours. But the truth will be written in fire across the sky. He scoffed, though I saw a flicker of genuine fear in his eyes. He leaned forward, conspiratorially. Even if such a folly were possible, it is not unseen. The Targaryens, a minor house by our standards, sailed west 2 years ago. Took their dragons, their few paltry goods. Scoffed at by all, branded as craven fools fleeing imaginary shadows. They spoke of visions, of dreams. No one believed them. A faint, grim smile touched my lips. Then know this, Lord Arian. The Targaryens were not fools. They were merely too early for their warning to be heeded, and too insignificant to be missed. Their departure is the last sign you will receive. And it is the last thing I will do as a friend to your ancestors. I leaned in, my voice dropping to a near whisper. I offer you refuge. An island within my domain in Sothoryos, far from the reach of the Doom's fury, rich in resources, safe from the wider world. But you must move alone. Slowly, discreetly. You cannot alert the other houses, for they will not believe you. You will be mocked, just as the Targaryens were, and your efforts to save your family will be thwarted by their hubris. How would we explain such a move? He asked, his mind already spinning, caught between disbelief and a dawning, terrible possibility. You will establish trade outposts in Sothoryos, I instructed. Slowly, over these 10 years, you will send your ships, ostensibly to secure new resources, new markets. But on those ships, you will discreetly move your family, your most vital treasures, your most loyal retainers. One by one, family by family, until your core is safe. Others will see it as a wise investment, a clever expansion of trade. They will not see the exodus. Lord Arion studied me, his eyes searching my ageless face for any hint of deceit. What he found was only conviction, and perhaps, the chilling echo of a truth too terrible to contemplate. After a long moment, he nodded, a heavy weight settling on his shoulders. We will consider your words, pale wanderer. And your offer. I knew he would. The seed of doubt, watered by the Targaryens, earlier departure and my unwavering truth, had been planted. My promise to Valyria had been paid. I had given them the means to survive. Now, it was up to House Valyria to choose life over pride, to abandon the doomed glory of Valyria and embark on their own quiet exodus to a new world. I had done all I could. 0 comments 0 vote. Chapter 15. The Silent Exodus and the Final Watch. Chapter 15. The Silent Exodus and the Final Watch. Time, 10 years before the Doom to the eve of the Doom. Lord Arion Valyria's perspective. The pale wanderer's words, a chilling whisper of a coming end, had burrowed deep into Lord Arion Valyria's mind, poisoning the very air of Valyria with doubt. To flee, to abandon 1,000 years of glory, of dominion, of dragons. The very thought was anathema, a craven act worthy of the mocking dismissal afforded to the Targaryens. Yet, Kaelen Silvanor's eyes, ancient and unwavering, spoke of a truth too profound to ignore. And the Targaryens had gone. 2 years ago. The following months were a torment of internal debate, hushed counsel with his most trusted kin. No dragons remained in their possession, they had never truly recovered from the loss of their last great beast centuries ago. That was a weakness, but now, perhaps, a blessing. Without a dragon, their departure would be far less conspicuous. Trade outposts in Sothoryos, Kaelen had said. It was a plausible cover. Others saw the wild continent as a source of slaves, exotic beasts, and a few rare ores. A Valyria's house seeking new markets wouldn't raise too many eyebrows. The exodus began subtly. First, it was the old and infirm, sent with a few trusted retainers and carefully disguised crates of gold and precious knowledge, ostensibly for long-term investment in distant lands. Then, younger, less prominent family members, ostensibly to oversee new mining ventures. Ships, once laden with silks and spices bound for the free cities, now carried hidden compartments, their crews sworn to secrecy under pain of unimaginable torment. The journeys were long, fraught with the perils of the smoking sea, but Kaelen had given them precise charts, leading them to a hidden, lush island off the western Sothorian coast. It was small, defensible, and untouched, yet teeming with natural resources. The early arrivals found an unexpected haven. A basic, but sturdy, harbor had been discreetly constructed, almost as if waiting for them. Supplies, fresh water, and even initial shelters had been prepared by unseen hands, Kaelen's silent promise fulfilled. It was primitive compared to Valyria, but it was safe. Fear gnawed at them with every departure from the homeland, but hope, fragile yet persistent, began to take root with every arrival at the designated island. Kaelen Silvanor's perspective. The journey back to Ael'athar felt swifter than my departure. The humid air of Sothoryos, thick with the scent of fertile earth and blossoming flora, was a stark contrast to the volatile, sulphurous breath of Valyria. I had delivered my warning, sowed the seeds of survival. Now, all that remained was the final, meticulous tightening of every bolt, the sharpening of every blade, the cementing of every loyalty. 10 years. 10 short years stood between us and the fiery wrath that would reshape the world. My return spurred a new wave of intensity across the empire. Valerius Ithilion's legions conducted drills with relentless precision, their movements like a single, unbreakable serpent through the deep woods. Aryan Kaelinur's forges worked day and night, the rhythmic clang echoing through Firesong's citadel as the last of our superior arms were crafted. Silvani Lumiel oversaw the provisioning of our vast granaries in Riverlight Hearth, ensuring we had reserves for a generation, while Fieler Ambron expanded our outer defenses in Ambrosia, establishing more distant outposts and securing every vulnerable frontier. Each duke understood the unspoken urgency. My presence, a silent, ageless reminder of the threat, was enough. I walked among them, a spectral overseer, correcting, guiding, always watching the sun rise and set, counting down the days. Years became months. I felt the earth's restless tremor beneath my feet grow more pronounced. The subtle shifts, the deeper rumblings, the occasional, inexplicable heat that seeped from fissures in the jungle rock, these were the death throes of a continent. I spent less time commanding, more time observing, my presence a steady anchor for my people. My dukes had perfected their roles, their Count-Viscount Baron hierarchies functioning with seamless efficiency. The legions were at their peak, the fleets patrolled our vast riverine and coastal domains. Periodically, a sleek vessel, clearly of Valyrian design, would approach the designated island refuge, offloading its clandestine cargo before disappearing back into the waves. The Valyri's family was moving. Not all of them, perhaps, but enough. They had chosen to believe, or at least, to hedge their bets. My engineers and scout teams, disguised and subtle, ensured their safe passage to the island and provided the necessary initial infrastructure, leaving no trace of our involvement behind. The final year was a blur of heightened vigilance. Valerius's warriors stood ready, not for an invasion, but for the aftermath. Silvani ensured that our vast stores were secured, our libraries safeguarded. Aryan smiths put away their tools, their work done. Fieler's expansion paused, shifting to a defensive posture. On the eve of the doom, the air crackled with an unnatural energy. The sky over the smoking sea, hundreds of leagues distant, glowed with a faint, malevolent light, invisible to most, but painfully clear to my ancient senses. Elias Vance, the physicist, saw the impossible energies coiling beneath the earth. Kaelen Silvanor, the Ael'athar, felt the world itself hold its breath. Every Silvanor in my empire, from the humblest baron to my mighty dukes, slept in their beds, safe within walls of stone and living wood, protected by legions and fleets, and ultimately, by the foresight of one man. My gaze was fixed eastward, towards the distant, doomed horizon. I had done all I could. The promise was paid. The shield was ready. The sail was set. Chapter 16. The world remade, the empire rises. Chapter 16. The world remade, the empire rises. Time. The doom of Valyria to early century of blood. Pav. Kaelen Silvanor. The night the doom struck, the world screamed. Even hundreds of leagues distant in Sothoryos, the earth convulsed. In Eltharion, the very ground beneath our fused stone and living wood cities heaved as if a giant hand had seized the continent and shaken it. Towering trees swayed violently, their deep roots anchoring the ground, but smaller structures groaned and cracked. The sky to the east, normally a canvas of endless stars, became a canvas of hellish fire. A malevolent, coppery glow pulsated from beyond the horizon, followed by a series of monstrous, echoing roars that shook the very air. These were not the sounds of thunder, but the death cries of a continent, the agony of a world tearing itself apart. Ash began to fall hours later, fine and gray, coating our vibrant jungle in a macabre shroud, turning the lush leaves to dull, mournful ghosts. The seas surged, retreating violently from our coastlines only to crash back with unprecedented fury, testing the strength of our newly built harbors. It was a terrifying display of raw, elemental power, a spectacle of destruction witnessed from afar, yet felt to the core. I stood atop the highest spire of Eltharion's palace, my senses stretched to their limit. I felt the earth's wounds, the searing agony of the land. Elias Vance, beside me, his face pale and grim, watched his instruments spin wildly, recording energies beyond anything known to man. The Valyrian freehold was gone. Utterly, irrevocably annihilated. The greatest civilization the world had ever known had consumed itself in fire and blood. My dukes immediately rallied their forces. Valerius Ithilion's legions moved to secure any infrastructure damage and aid distressed communities. Silvani Lumiel's fleets navigated the churning waters to assess coastal damage. Fieler Ambaron's pioneers braced for potential seismic aftershocks, while Aryan Kaelinur's smiths checked the integrity of Firesong Citadel. Within days, the ash settled, the sea calmed, and the terrible silence that followed the tempest settled upon the land. The empire was shaken, but unbroken. Our foresight had saved us. News trickled in over the following months, carried by desperate refugees clinging to makeshift rafts, by panicked merchant ships that had miraculously survived the storms, and by our own long-range scouting vessels. Chaos reigned in Essos. The mighty free cities, once held in check by the dragonlords, turned on each other in a brutal scramble for power, resources, and territory. The century of blood had begun. This period of unparalleled strife in the wider world, while a tragedy for many, was an opportunity for the Silvanor. While the great powers of Essos bled themselves dry, we would not engage in their endless wars. Instead, we would focus on trade, establishing our unique presence on the global stage, not through conquest, but through reliable strength and the bounty of our lands. Our empire will rise, not from the ashes of others, but from the prosperity we create, I declared to my dukes. We have food, a surplus born of Silvani's efficient agriculture. We have the finest crafts, products of Aryan smiths. And we have the peace that others desperately crave. My most crucial strategic move was to look west. Westeros, a continent largely untouched by Valyrian direct rule, was still an enigma to many. They had their own kings, their own conflicts, but they would need resources. Especially food, as the global climate shifts from the doom might impact harvests. I personally led the first diplomatic and trade mission to Westeros, sailing with a small, yet impressive, fleet of our sleek, jungle hardwood vessels. Our destination, Aldtown, in the Reach. It was a hub of knowledge, trade, and power, far enough from the immediate chaos of the Stepstones and the coming storms of the Narrow Sea. Our arrival caused a stir. Ships crafted unlike any seen in Westeros, crewed by the strangely youthful, disciplined Ael'athar. I sought out the Hightowers, the ruling lords of Aldtown, powerful and pragmatic. I presented them not with threats, but with an offer, a steady supply of exotic fruits, hardy grains, and preserved meats from Sothoryos, unmatched in quality and quantity. While the free cities squabble over scraps of a fallen empire, I told Lord Hightower, we offer stability. We offer a continuous supply of the sustenance your people need. Our prices are fair, our word is iron, and our deliveries are unfailing. We seek not land, nor conquest, but mutually beneficial trade. The Hightowers, ever shrewd, recognized the immense value of such a reliable partner. They saw our well-equipped fleet, the disciplined bearing of my escort, and the strange, vibrant life that pulsed within my very being. They accepted. Thus began the age of Ael'athar trade. Our ships, flying the banner of the verdant sun, became a common sight in Westerosi ports, supplying the warring kingdoms with the very necessities they needed to sustain their conflicts, inadvertently binding them to us. Our name, once a whisper of myth from the dangerous southern jungles, now became synonymous with reliability, with quality, and with a quiet, undeniable power. We were not merely survivors of the doom, we were rising, steadily and purposefully, on a global stage where chaos now reigned supreme.